They told you the end of the world would come with fire and ruin. They said it would be punishment, a divine reckoning written in the stars. But what if they were wrong? What if the true apocalypse is not destruction, not the end, but a new beginning? Long before doomsday prophecies filled holy books and headlines, the ancient Gnostics told of a secret revelation, a prophecy so subversive it was buried beneath centuries of silence. In their cosmology, they said the world you see was not shaped by the true God, but by a lesser creative force, the demiurge, a being the ancients described as Saklas, the fool. And within that illusion, humanity sleeps, unaware that something eternal still burns within them. But the Gnostic prophecy of the end times isn't one of fear and doom like the one you've always been taught. According to the hidden texts, the unveiling is not the end of creation. It is the end of deception, the lifting of the veil, a revelation of what you truly are. You've always felt it deep down, the quiet knowing that reality is beginning to crack, that the old stories can no longer stand against the rising tide of consciousness. The Gnostics foresaw this exact moment. There is an idea so unsettling that it rarely gets spoken aloud. What if the world you struggle inside is not broken, but designed to make you forget who you are? The ancient mystics suggested something even more disorienting. They said that when the material dream begins to crumble, it does not signal collapse, but awakening. They believed that buried beneath layers of noise, distraction, identity, and fear, something inside you has been asleep for a very long time. And when it stirs, the world around you begins to feel unstable, not because reality is ending, but because illusion is losing its grip. They taught that within humanity lives a divine spark, a fragment of something eternal, hidden beneath what they called the long amnesia of matter. You feel it in those strange moments when life seems thin, when the surface cracks and something deeper looks back at you. But remembrance is not welcomed easily. According to these ancient voices, as the inner light begins to rise, the forces that sustain illusion push back harder. They describe these forces as archons, not monsters in the sky, but subtle influences woven into thought itself, currents of confusion that keep awareness small and contained. The archons, they said, feed on ignorance, on distraction, on the belief that you are nothing more than flesh reacting to circumstance. Yet even in their mythology, these powers were temporary. Their dominion had limits, because something else was moving through history, a returning light. The texts called it the illuminator of knowledge, a presence that appears again and again across ages, not always as a single person, but as a current that reawakens memory whenever darkness becomes too dense. And so the end of an age was never described as a fall from grace, but as a return to it, not destruction, but recognition. To understand this strange prophecy, you have to step back into a time when remembering was dangerous. Between the 2nd and 4th centuries CE, small circles of seekers scattered across the ancient world began speaking in whispers about a reality beyond the visible one. They called themselves Gnostics, which simply meant those who know, not believers, not followers of rigid systems, but seekers of direct inner knowledge. They spoke of a truth too alive to be confined inside temples or controlled by institutions. Their writings were eventually condemned, hidden, and buried, and for centuries their voices were nearly erased. Then, in 1945, in the sands of Egypt, a sealed jar was discovered containing what we now call the Nag Hammadi Library, a collection of texts that reshaped what we thought we understood about early spirituality. Among these scrolls was a strange and powerful work known as the Apocalypse of Adam. In it, the story of humanity is told in a way few have heard. Adam is not portrayed as a sinner, cast out in shame. He is remembered as a being of light who descended from a higher realm known as the Pleroma, a fullness beyond form and division. His fall was not moral, it was cosmic. He and Eve were luminous, clothed in awareness. But when they entered the material realm, their radiance dimmed. Not because they disobeyed, but because they passed into a domain shaped by a lesser creator, the demiurge, a blind craftsman who believed himself to be the ultimate source. This, the Gnostics said, was the beginning of illusion. They did not describe the true divine as a ruler demanding worship. They spoke of an infinite presence beyond all opposites. And this world of decay, conflict, and limitation, they believed, was not its direct creation. Instead, it was fashioned by the demiurge and guarded by forces that maintained the illusion. Humanity's spark became entangled in flesh, cycling through birth and death, mistaking the dream for the real. Yet even in this bleak vision, there was a promise, a final aeon, a closing chapter of forgetting when remembrance would return. The apocalypse of Adam unfolds this promise through images of floods, celestial visitations, and conflicts between realms. But these events read less like weather reports and more like metaphors for consciousness rising and falling through vast cycles of time. The flood, for instance, is not framed as punishment for sin. It is described as an attempt by a jealous lesser power to erase those who carried knowledge, a symbolic war against awakening itself. And yet, not all were lost. Those who carried the hidden light survived, guided by messengers from higher realms. And threaded through the text is the recurring presence of the illuminator of knowledge, appearing again and again whenever the world sinks too deeply into forgetfulness. The pattern repeats: descent and remembrance, concealment and revelation, illusion and liberation. The Gnostics saw history not as a straight road moving toward a final event, but as a spiral, a rhythm of forgetting and remembering playing out across ages and within each human life. Perhaps that is why these writings were buried. Because a human being who begins to suspect their own divinity becomes difficult to control, and a world that sees through illusion begins to shift in ways that unsettle established power. So the prophecy was hidden, not destroyed, just waiting. And now, as the world feels louder, faster, more fractured, as systems strain and certainties dissolve, you might sense that something ancient is stirring again. Not outside you, within you. The question is not whether the world is ending, the question is whether the dream is thinning. And if it is, what does that mean for you? If the dream is thinning, then what begins to emerge is not chaos, but sight. The Gnostics used a word that has been misunderstood for centuries: apocalypse. Today it conjures images of fire and collapse, but in its original Greek, apocalypsis simply means unveiling, not the destruction of the earth, but the lifting of a veil. And they insisted that this unveiling does not happen in the sky, it happens in perception. The world ends, they said, when the mind awakens to what it has always been. According to the apocalypse of Adam, this realm is not the final expression of divine creation, but a kind of field of testing, a layered reality structured in a way that encourages forgetting. The demiurge, that blind architect of matter, shaped this world as a reflection of a higher fullness, but the reflection was distorted, inverted, incomplete, beauty mixed with decay, love tangled with fear, light fractured into opposites. And inside this fractured world, you were born carrying something that does not belong to it. A spark of the pleroma still glows within you. It cannot be extinguished. It can only be covered. The Gnostics called it the imperishable seed, not your personality, not your history, not the roles you perform, but the silent awareness behind all of it, the witness that notices your thoughts, your emotions, your doubts, the part of you that has never aged. Here is where the prophecy turns inward. They said that when enough of these sparks begin to awaken, when enough people recognize that the voice in their head is not their essence, the illusion that binds the world begins to weaken under its own weight. The end of the world is not the end of life. It is the end of misidentification. The closing of the illusion is the closing of forgetfulness. Even the flood story is reframed through this lens. In their telling, the waters were not divine punishment for moral failure. They were a symbolic attempt by the lesser creator to drown remembrance, to erase those who carried knowledge of their origin. A war not against flesh, but against gnosis, direct inner knowing. And yet the texts say that certain souls survived, those who carried the hidden flame. They became the ancestors of future awakeners. From their lineage, it is said, emerged 400,000 souls of light, scattered through history, hidden among ordinary lives, waiting for a signal that would stir memory. Whether you read that number literally or symbolically, the message is intimate. Some among us are not here merely to survive the age, but to dissolve its illusions simply by remembering who they are. The final aeon, they hinted, would not begin with thunder, it would begin with recognition. But awakening does not arrive as a single event. It moves in waves. Through teachers, through quiet insights, through moments when the surface of life thins and something deeper breaks through. The Apocalypse of Adam speaks of a mysterious figure who appears 3 times across cosmic history, the illuminator of knowledge. Not a hero descending to rescue humanity, but a recurring embodiment of remembrance, a presence that enters the dream whenever darkness reaches saturation. And here is the subtle shift that changes everything. The illuminator is not confined to one body. It is a current of consciousness moving through time, the same current that has animated prophets, mystics, rebels, and poets. The same current that flickers in you when you question the surface of things. When you pause and feel that strange stillness behind your thoughts, when you sense that your life carries meaning beyond the visible script, in that moment, you are not separate from the prophecy. You are participating in it. This is why resistance intensifies when awareness grows, because every awakening destabilizes the architecture of illusion. The world, as they described it, is not maintained primarily by force, but by belief. The demiurge rules not with chains, but with narratives, convincing humanity that matter is all that exists, that salvation must be granted from outside, that you are fundamentally incomplete. And the archons, those subtle keepers of the labyrinth, weave confusion through thought, amplifying fear, division, distraction, not as monsters to be feared, but as mechanisms of the dream. Yet even they, in this mythic vision, have an expiration date. When the dreamer recognizes that it is dreaming, the labyrinth loses authority. The texts describe a moment when the lower powers begin to panic, asking their ruler about these humans who carry the seed of light, who seem to overturn the dominion simply by standing in awareness. The disturbance is cosmic, but not geological. It is a shaking of consciousness. A blinding mist covers the heavens of illusion. The eyes of the blind rulers darken, their eons begin to crumble. Fire, wind, and light sweep through the structure of the cosmos. But this fire is not vengeance. It is purification. It burns away what is unreal, every false identity, every story that said you were small, every layer of fear that kept you separate from your own depth. And from above, the collapsing heavens descend luminous clouds, bearing radiant messengers named Abri, Sablo, and Gamaliel. Archetypal forces, not angels of wrath, but guardians of remembrance, lifting awakened souls beyond the reach of the fading illusion. The imagery is dramatic, but its meaning is intimate. When awareness stabilizes within you, the structures built on misidentification begin to dissolve. Not the earth, not your body, but the inner architecture of separation. Even death in this vision becomes a veil rather than an ending, a shift in perception rather than annihilation. For those who remember, the texts say, there is return, not punishment. Recognition, not damnation. And this is the quiet revolution embedded within the prophecy. The apocalypse is not about surviving catastrophe. It is about surviving forgetfulness. It is about realizing that what you have been seeking was never outside you. The unveiling is not cosmic spectacle. It is the moment perception turns inward and finds something unbroken. And if that is true, then the question changes. Not when will the world end, but when will you remember? If the unveiling happens in perception, then the final movement of this prophecy is not something you wait for, but something you enter. The Gnostics described a holy baptism, but not of water. A baptism of knowing, a submersion into living awareness so complete that everything false begins to loosen its hold. They called it the living water, not a ritual performed by hands, but a current of consciousness that flows whenever you become still enough to notice it. This is where the myth becomes personal, because the end of the age, in this vision, is not a date on a calendar. It is the moment the false center collapses and the deeper center takes its place. They wrote that as more sparks awaken, the material cosmos begins to fade like a dream dissolving at sunrise. The sun and moon lose their power, the heavens unravel. The architects of illusion return to the light from which they emerged. These images sound cosmic, but their pulse is inward. The sun and moon are the forces that once governed your reactions. The heavens are the stories that framed your limits. When awareness stabilizes, those governing lights lose authority. The old reflexes soften, the inherited fears thin, and what remains is something quieter, older, unbroken. They insisted that this dissolution is not to be feared. It is the lifting of the final veil, the recognition that separation was never ultimate. The light that returns to its source was never truly lost. It only forgot. And if that is so, then your destiny is not escape from the world, but awakening within it. Not rejection of matter, but seeing through the belief that matter is all there is. This is where the narrative turns directly toward you. Sitting here, in this brief span between birth and death, you might feel suspended between worlds, part of you entangled in responsibilities, identities, noise, another part watching, questioning, sensing that there is more. The Gnostics would say the prophecy is not written in the stars above you, but in the gaze that looks at them. The real unveiling begins when you doubt the surface of things, when you stop running from silence. When you allow yourself to notice the awareness behind the noise, the illusion does not collapse with thunder, it dissolves through attention. Every time you recognize that you are not identical with the thought passing through your mind, a thread of the web loosens. Every time you witness anger without becoming it, something ancient brightens. If the archons feed on forgetfulness, on reaction, on fear amplified without reflection, then presence starves them. Awareness is not passive, it is disruptive. It interrupts the cycle. The living water flows most clearly in the pause between breaths, in the space before you respond, in the stillness that observes emotion without drowning in it. You have touched it before. In moments of quiet clarity, in the hush before dawn, in the strange calm that sometimes arrives in the middle of chaos, that stillness is not empty, it is luminous. It is the imperishable seed shimmering through human form. Remembrance, then, was always the true ritual, not a creed, not a public declaration, a noticing, a gentle but radical shift of identity from the restless surface to the silent depth. When fear arises and you turn toward it instead of away, something shifts. The one who observes fear is not afraid in the same way. When sorrow moves through you and you allow it without resistance, it becomes energy completing its arc rather than a story that defines you. This is what they meant by purification, not punishment inflicted from above, but clarity emerging from within, fire that burns away what is unreal. And as this inner clarity spreads from one person to another, not through preaching but through presence, the collective dream begins to thin. The prophecy calls this the return of the light. Sparks igniting other sparks, not through force, but through resonance. You may feel that something in your life is pressing now, a sense that old structures no longer hold, that familiar explanations ring hollow, that the pace of the world is accelerating while something inside you is asking for depth. The ancient texts hinted that such turbulence precedes unveiling, not because catastrophe is destined, but because illusion strains when it can no longer contain awareness. The world does not end in fire. The false world, built on misidentification, reaches a limit. And when it does, what has been hidden becomes visible, not as spectacle, but as recognition. You begin to see that the search for completion outside yourself has been part of the maze, that the authority you projected onto systems, institutions, even spiritual hierarchies, was a reflection of something within you waiting to be claimed. This is not rebellion for its own sake. It is reclamation, a quiet sovereignty, the realization that the light you hoped would descend from the sky has been flickering behind your eyes all along. The prophecy, in its deepest sense, is not forecasting disaster. It is inviting participation. It is asking whether you will continue to identify with the dream or whether you will dare to become the dreamer who knows. And this choice does not require grand gestures. It begins in ordinary moments, the pause before you react, the breath you take when emotion rises. The decision to question a belief you have always assumed was yours. In those small shifts, the final aeon unfolds. The illusion of separation thins. The return happens. Not as a journey across space, but as a recognition of origin. And perhaps this is why the message feels urgent, yet quiet. Because if this is a moment of thinning veils, then walking away from your own awareness means reinforcing the very structure that confines you. Staying present means participating in its dissolution. You do not have to accept this as doctrine. You do not have to reject your previous beliefs. Simply notice. Notice the awareness that is reading these words. Notice that it is not fragmented, not divided, not bound by the roles you play. That awareness is closer to what the Gnostics called the pleroma than any image of heaven in the sky. The end times, then, are not about annihilation. They are about the end of forgetting. The fire is recognition. The flood is consciousness washing through old patterns. The return is memory settling back into itself. And if you feel even a faint stirring as you hear this, if something inside you grows still instead of reactive, then perhaps the unveiling is not a distant prophecy. Perhaps it is already happening. And so what once sounded like a distant myth begins to feel closer, quieter, almost familiar. The same light that ancient stories placed in Adam and Eve before the fall, that moved silently through hidden lineages and returned again and again as the illuminator of knowledge, is not far away or locked in the past. It stirs in the same interior space where your thoughts rise and fall. When that light looks through your eyes, even for a moment, the world softens. It no longer appears as something you must escape or repair to be whole. It begins to feel like a living field in which awareness is slowly remembering itself. Nothing dramatic needs to happen. No thunder splits the sky. The prophecy fulfills itself gently, in recognition rather than spectacle. What you have just moved through is not a warning of destruction, but a reframing of meaning. The end was never about annihilation. It was about the end of forgetting. The fire was never meant to terrify you. It is the quiet fire of clarity that burns away what was never truly you. The flood was never condemnation. It is the steady current of consciousness washing through old patterns, loosening what no longer fits. And the return is not the arrival of something new, but the easing back into something that has always been present beneath the noise. If parts of this stirred something wordless in you, that stirring is not random. If you have felt out of place in the world, or sensed that reality holds more than it shows, that too is not a mistake. You are not behind. The pace of your remembering belongs to your own season. The Gnostic vision never painted humanity as abandoned or broken beyond repair. It imagined each person as a fragment of light, gradually recalling its origin, not through force, but through awareness. And when enough fragments glow with that quiet memory, the illusion of separation loses its weight. Nothing needs to be forced. Nothing needs to be proven. The movement from tension to trust, from searching to resting, is itself part of the unveiling. Even now, as you sit with these reflections, there is a stillness beneath them. A calm witness that has been present through every doubt, every question, every shift in understanding. That presence does not rush. It does not argue. It simply remains. And perhaps that is what has been unfolding all along. Not a battle for belief, but a soft remembering. Not a demand to change your life overnight, but an invitation to notice what has always been here. As the outer world continues its noise and motion, there is no need to carry fear about endings. The deeper story has always been about light, recognizing itself, about awareness, returning to awareness, about the dreamer, gently realizing the dream. And if something within you feels a little more spacious now, a little less hurried, then you are already standing inside that return, ready to explore whatever layer of remembrance waits just beyond this moment. As I sit with everything we've just explored, what lingers is not a doctrine, not a system, but a feeling, almost like standing at the edge of a vast ocean at night, sensing depth without needing to measure it. To me, the Gnostic vision feels less like a theory about the universe and more like a mirror quietly lifted in front of the soul. It does not demand agreement. It does not try to conquer other beliefs. It simply whispers a possibility that the restlessness you have carried, the sense that something about reality feels unfinished or inverted, may not be a flaw in you. It may be a signal. When I reflect on these ancient images, the demiurge shaping a world of distortion, the archons weaving confusion, the divine spark hidden in plain sight, I don't see enemies in the sky. I see symbols of inner experience. I see the moments when fear narrows perception, when identity hardens, when we forget the stillness beneath our thoughts. And I also see the quiet, stubborn light that refuses to go out. The part of you that has always questioned, always sensed that there is more than the surface story. Perhaps that is why these myths survived centuries of silence. They speak to something intimate. They feel less like history and more like memory. But what about you? As you listened, what stirred? Did any part of this feel strangely familiar, as if you were not learning something new but remembering something old? Or did it challenge you, unsettle you, press against beliefs you've long held? There is no right reaction here. Curiosity, resistance, resonance, doubt, all of it belongs. I would genuinely love to hear how this journey landed in you. Share your thoughts, your questions, your disagreements, your insights in the comments below. Your voice adds another spark to this unfolding conversation, and sometimes one reflection from you can open a doorway for someone else who is quietly searching. If this exploration spoke to something deep within you, you can also support this space by liking the video and subscribing, so these reflections continue to reach those who may need them. More than anything, I'm curious, when you look at your own life through this lens, does it change the way you see your struggles, your longings, your sense of being here at this time? Perhaps the most important part of this entire exploration is not what was said, but what it awakened in you.